it is finally time to start the build. First up, we need to install the 4L80 transmission.
Before we install this transmission, we have replaced the cooler line quick connect fittings with these AN6 fittings. And we've also transferred the shifter linkage from the old transmission. Okay, I think it's ready.
It is.
This torque converter has a 2500 stall speed.
That's right. We're choosing this specific torque converter so we have a little bit of headway if we want to change the camshaft down the road. The LS1 that we're using is a stock camshaft, and it'll hold a nice good low idle. But for now, this torque converter will let the motor slip up into its power band and make the car feel a little bit more peppy anyway. When we're installing these, it's important that we look inside the transmission. The input shaft at our lockup splines, we see that we're clocked at 11 and 5. That's important, so you don't have to spin the converter a million times to get it on. You just know your clock position of the lockup splines and you can just wiggle it right on.
And now it's time to install the LS1. I think it's ready.
There's a special flex plate that goes along with this to adapt the LS engine to the 4L80 transmission. These flex plates have a little spacer built into the hub to make the flex plates sit a little bit closer to the transmission. And these flex plates usually come with their own hardware. Engine is in the car, and so is the 4L80, and our motor mounts don't line up. They need to be back. These mount pieces need to be back on the frame a little bit further than what they are. And so what we're gonna do to keep that as easy and simple as possible is these are left and right sides. They will go on the frame just like this. What we're gonna do is we're gonna switch the left and right sides around this way. I'll show you what that looks like. All right, we've been working on these motor mounts. We think we got our solution figured out. I wanted to share about that real quick. So these are conversion motor mounts that are supposed to be made just for this. The motor mounts are 2 pieces each. This is the assembled left motor mount, and this is them taken apart. Taken apart were just these 2 pieces. There's this plate that bolts to the engine block, and then there's this mount that bolts to the frame of the vehicle. Our 2 plates that bolt to the engine mount are offset a little bit from each other. One is off to one side, one is off to the other side. So aside from them being left and right, if we need a little bit more adjustability, we can also switch these from different sides. For the mounts work on 3 bolts. This is the right mount. This is the left mount. On the frame of the vehicle, we have 3 holes, 1, 2, 3. These are the 3 factory drilled holes in the frame that we are supposed to use for these mounts. And when we use them, we land here with the mount at the front of the cross member. And even with the 4L80 and the motor coming forward a couple of inches, we still can't make the engine fit onto these mounts. The front bracket just doesn't have enough adjustability to it. And so we need to move this mount a little bit more to the back. The way we're gonna do that is by switching sides, right? Instead of this being on this side, we're gonna put this mount on the right and we're gonna put the right mount on the left, okay? So to make that happen, we're gonna take the right mount, we're gonna use the top and bottom bolt holes, and we're gonna put those in the bolt holes on the frame. And then we're gonna use this as a template to mark and drill our 1 hole that we need to drill on each side up at the top of the cross member at the front. And you can see from my markings of where the mount used to sit to where it does sit, it's moved it back a significant way, but the mount still sits over the supported material of the cross member. So it'll still have strength, it won't flex or anything like that. And if you're trying to do this yourself, we're using the right bottom mount with the left upper plate to get us our size and adjustment and to make everything go into a happy place. And the engine and transmission are in. We had to make a couple of changes to the swap motor mounts by installing them on each other side and drilling 1 hole in the frame so that they would fit. And this was likely due to swapping from the 400 to the 4L80 and us wanting to reuse the same drive shaft. 4L80 and 400 have the same output shaft and the same dimensions, so you can reuse the 400 drive shaft on 4L80 if only the dimensions are the same and your tail shaft stays in the same place. Because 4L80 is a longer transmission, if you just put it on the back of where your motor normally sat at, you have to get a shorter drive shaft. But for us, we built off of the transmission mount and the location specifically so we could reuse the factory drive shaft. Aside from that, we also got to reuse the factory shift linkage for the 400. That worked out just fine on 4L80. I'm sure there's 1 or 2 on the low gears that we don't get, but we get park, reverse, neutral, drive, or overdrive and drive just fine. The accessory drive kit that we are using for our swap is we're using the power steering and alternator bracket from all of the trucks, from any of the GM trucks from like, I don't know, 99 or 2000 on to like 07 or 2013 or something. It's the same setup. And for the air compressor, because the frame is in the way so we can't go down low, we have a Summit Racing up high AC bracket and a Sandin SD508 style compressor. And that's it. Everything fits. There was 1 little place on the frame, or on the body, on the fender liner, right by the compressor where we just had to trim a little piece off and just tap it down. I won't even bother showing you guys that on this because that is subjective to the specific compressor and bracket that you get, and these changes are going to be different for whatever you do or don't want to go with. But it took 2 seconds with a grinder just to cut and then fold it down. The next video will be about our Aces EFI.